What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be going over some unpopular opinions from my Fortnite community. If you guys are unaware of how these videos work, I made a community post and asked you guys to comment some of your unpopular opinions about Fortnite. So things that you think a lot of players will disagree with or be contentious in the Fortnite community overall. This is something that's done in like a bunch of different communities, but as far as Fortnite goes, I really liked watching I Talk Fortnite's unpopular opinion videos, even when I wasn't playing the game, just to see like how someone who has a very different perspective on the game than me kind of thinks about the game. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. Should be interesting. Comment down below more unpopular opinions that you would like to see me react to or talk about in the future, or just comment about any of the discussions that we have in this video. And if you guys do enjoy it, remember to give it a like and subscribe if you would like to see more. The first thing we're going to talk about is something that I don't know if this is necessarily an unpopular opinion in the Fortnite community, but outside the Fortnite community, I think this definitely would be an unpopular opinion. And this is from Jack, and they say, Fortnite itself isn't cringe, the Fortnite player base is. Sure, there's a 9-year-old player base who are sweaty little cringe lords, but the game is great. Epic has the best player support ever. The game is always adding new content. There's so many fun ways to express yourself through affordable cosmetics. Fortnite has stayed fresh and fun for literal years. I was 14 when this game came out, and I'm 20 now. Great game. Tired of defending myself to the general public when I say I play Fortnite. And that last part is why I think this is an unpopular opinion. I think most of the Fortnite community would agree with this head on. Like, sure, there's some cringy aspects to the Fortnite community for sure, but that could be said for any games player base or really any community of people ever. There's always going to be, you know, the cringy aspect of it, or the people who aren't the best representatives of what that community really is, no matter what, if it's gaming, sports, an area where you live, nationalities. There's always going to be, you know, the rotten apples that sour the bunch, or whatever that expression is. And I feel like Fortnite is a huge example of that. There's so many people who hate on this game that have never played it or never really paid attention to it. They just maybe saw that one clip of the little kid saying, we like Fortnite, and they're like, oh, that's a children's game. Frick that. I'll never play it. But I never really disagreed that I never agreed that Fortnite was a children's game. For me, what I like about Fortnite is how large the skill gap is and how many different ways there is to play every single fight. Like when it comes to building, editing, and your gun skill, there's just so many different aspects of skill within Fortnite. And that's what always made the game really satisfying and really fun for me to play. So it has the visuals of a kid's game per se, which has its own positive, which I'll get to in a moment. But underneath the surface of that, you have one of the most like complex and like deep and like really mechanically demanding games. So that's why I never really agreed that Fortnite was a kid game. And then as far as like the visuals being cartoony, sure, that is appeals to children, I guess. But it also just makes the game nice to look at. You know, when I played Warzone, the game was ugly to look at most of the time, and it made camouflage and hiding more of a thing in that game than has really ever been in Fortnite, because of the cartoony aspect. People pop really well, and it kind of reduces how pay to win some skins could be. So I completely agree with this. I think most of the people in the comments are going to agree with this as well. But outside of Fortnite, I feel like there is this notion that it's a kid's game, and anybody who's ever actually played it, I feel like will disagree. The next comment that we have is going to be from Big E. They say, I'm over the fact that the item shop is 95% female skins all the time. I played with G.I. Joe as a kid and not Barbie, so I'd like more manly options. There are a lot of male skins in the game, and most sets feature both a female and a male version. The reason why a lot of female skins come to the item shop is just because that's what sells. For whatever reason, a lot of people in the Fortnite community prefer the female skins because of the smaller model or the more sleek design. The hitbox is the same regardless of male or female, but having a smaller character can make it harder for some people to hit you in theory, just because it's like a smaller target for them to be aiming at. And then also a lot of the male skins being big and bulky can kind of block more of your screen. So that's why people tend to prefer female skins, and that's why the item shop is typically female skins, because those are the ones that sell better. This is an opinion that I very much disagree with. X2 Ember says the Chapter 2 map is greater than the Chapter 3 map. Chapter 2 to me just had so many more little spots on the map, or landmarks, that were so cool, and the flow of the map was incredible. The landmarks were genuinely amazing and felt very unique, not just a small boring hut or something. Chapter 3 feels very empty when you're not at a POI, and pretty much the only landmarks are gas stations and 7 outposts. It's just way less fun to traverse and explore. So I don't even know where to begin disagreeing with this comment. I will agree that certain spots of the map are kind of bare and underdeveloped, and I would say the desert biome is a huge example of that. I don't really enjoy the desert biome at all. The only POI I really like in the desert is Rocky Reels, and that's bordering kind of the other biome. But when you go to the rest of the desert, there's just nothing really out there. And then the new reality tree area is also kind of like a barren wilderness, but I think that's the whole point of it, is that there's not really much going on there, and that it's, you know, a new forest to an extent. So I think that's by design and not necessarily here to stay forever. It's just part of this season. As far as flow goes, this is something that's so hard to quantify, but I think the Chapter 3 map flows much better and plays much better throughout different periods of time in the game than the Chapter 2 map did. This is really subjective, and it doesn't really, there's no way to quantify it, but yeah, the Chapter 2 map had terrible flow in my opinion, and also, it didn't really have any map changes, which is what makes Fortnite to me. When I quit playing the game in Chapter 2 Season 3, the main reason why is because of the lack of map changes that we had gotten up to that point, and it just didn't seem like Epic was really intent on making map changes. And when I came back mid-Chapter 2 Season 8, I was landing at all of the same POIs that I was landing at when I quit playing the game, and that, to me, is a huge problem. So, like, I liked Holly Hedges, I liked Misty Meadows, I liked Frenzy Farm, but I think that may have gotten destroyed. I don't remember. But yeah, there just wasn't very many good POIs on the Chapter 2 map, in my opinion, and not very many map changes over the course of the chapter that really made the map good. And what's interesting is I feel like what they're saying about the Chapter 2 map in comparison to the Chapter 3 map is what a lot of people said about the Chapter 1 map when talking about the Chapter 2 map. Like, they were saying it's only POIs and then there's nothing in between, and that the Chapter 1 map had just way better flow and there was way more memorable areas around the map. So I'm actually curious, Ember, if you're watching this, did you start playing in Chapter 2? Because I feel like whatever map someone starts playing on in a BR is always going to be their favorite. And then when you talk about landmarks being generally like amazing and memorable, that's likely because it was your first experience on the game. Whereas people who started in Chapter 1 said the same thing about why the Chapter 2 map wasn't good. So I'm interested to see if you started playing in Chapter 2 and Chapter 2 map was your first experience. And just from the outside looking in across like every BR that I've really paid attention to, it seems like typically the first map is always seen as the best, or the map where somebody started playing. So if they didn't start playing on the first map, whatever map they started on, they think is the best, and then no other map will really ever be able to compare. I've noticed that in the Fortnite community and the Warzone community. So I don't know. Seems like no matter how good or bad a map is, as the one that you started on, it's always going to be your favorite and always going to be the most memorable. And maybe that's part of like nostalgia and not necessarily good, like which map is necessarily better. But personally, I think the Chapter 3 map is a lot better than the Chapter 2 map. There's a lot more different POIs that I enjoyed personally, and I think the flow is much better. And another thing is we've gotten a decent amount of map changes so far in Chapter 3. Not an absurd amount, but if we get more POIs like Logjam Lavish or whatever that place is called, where it's 4 different POIs in one, I think we're going to be getting 4 more spots like that over the course of the season. And if each of them have 4 different versions, I think this season alone will have more map changes than the entirety of Chapter 2, which is pretty disappointing. Next comment. Flickshot says, split the game even further than zero build and build lobbies by completely changing the maps and weapon loadouts for each. Completely cater to sweats and build modes and let the noobs have their fun in zero build. For your information, I'm not a sweat. I don't play enough to be that good at building, but I love build lobbies and hate the spray meta and anything that lowers the skill gap. It makes me want to play less and not put time in to get good at building. This is something that I completely agree with, and I've talked about this in a past video, in that I think the zero build mode existing can fix a lot of the problems that we've had in Fortnite over the years, because ever since building became really good in like Season 4, or like people got really good at building, Epic started buffing spray weapons to try to give people a counter to building. So people who didn't want to build could just rely on spray weapons and just, in theory, just grief people trying to build. And that just always created a point of contention in the community where the people who hate building were never happy because they're getting beat by builders, and then the people who like building and like Fortnite were annoyed that Epic was always adding overpowered spray weapons to try to give people who didn't want to build a chance. And I think this is one of the best things that the zero build mode could do, is that in theory Epic doesn't need to balance the game around creating a situation where building isn't good. They can just make build mode good for people who want to build, and make zero build, the people who don't want to build can go and play that. And both modes could be better for it, I think. And also the completely different weapon loadouts, I think, is also a huge point. There's so many things that are viable or more viable in zero build, like shield bubbles, porta forts, you name it. I feel like there's so many more unique items that they could add to zero build that would just not really be necessary at all in build mode because of the way building works and because of the way fights play out with building. A lot of fights are going to turn into box fights and things of that nature. For example, the hammer AR. I really like the hammer AR in zero build. I pretty much never use it in build. So there's different metas and different playstyles that kind of cater towards each, and I think having a different loot pool and maybe different like changes to the map over time could help with that. Do I think it's going to happen? No, probably not. I think that in theory it would be good, but Epic kind of split the loot pool with competitive and normals a while ago. And even then, they've never made the competitive loot pool like completely different. They just kind of didn't add some things that were in normals. So like the heavy sniper, rift to goes, shockwaves, those aren't in competitive, but it's not like they take out weapons or bring in weapons specifically for arena. Like for example, I think competitive right now would be significantly better if you take out the combat SMG and take out the Stinger SMG and put in the base normal submachine gun in Fortnite, and maybe even do the same with shotguns. The spray weapons that we have now are way too overpowered, and compared to the old SMG, the old SMG doesn't even stand a chance. So I think it would be better for competitive if we had less effective spray weapons, and pretty much everyone thinks that. But Epic never made like the loot pools that different. They just kind of didn't add some overpowered things to arena. So while I do think it'd be good if they made completely different loot pools for normals, building modes, and for zero build, I don't think it'll necessarily happen just because of how they've treated arena. Even though they did separate the loot pools in that mode, they tried to keep it as close as they could. So yeah, unfortunately, I think both modes won't be as good as they should be because Epic wants to keep things similar between the two modes. The next comment, Tilted Towers was overrated. This is a huge point of contention, and I think this is true to an extent. Tilted Towers wasn't overrated in Chapter 1 because the main reason why people were going there is because they wanted to fight. And whatever POI is decided to be the popular POI, and a lot of people go there for the purpose of it being like really populated so they could try to get high kills, like it works, you know? Like Superstore and Warzone, Tilted Towers, and Fortnite, whatever the hot POI is, you're going to have so many people going there just because it's hot, and as long as it's hot, it's satisfying their needs. But as far as like an actual POI goes, like just take out the like reputation that Tilted Towers has of being a hot POI, I do think it was kind of like not that good of a POI, and it was never really something I enjoyed landing at because fighting in buildings can be really tedious and annoying, and I feel like you've seen that with Chapter 3. We have Tilted Towers on the map, but for whatever reason, it doesn't draw as many people as it did in Chapter 1. Like the reputation just isn't there anymore, and you see it just not being that desirable of a POI. Like I feel like I never really see a lot of people going there. I often like go through Tilted mid game and there's like not really builds there, or like there's not really signs that people fought. So I feel like Tilted Towers now is kind of overrated. Like it doesn't live up to the reputation, but Tilted Towers back in the day wasn't overrated, if that makes any sense. Like Tilted Towers needs an absurd amount of people to be Tilted Towers, and the Tilted Towers that we have on Chapter 3 not having an absurd amount of people just doesn't feel like Tilted Towers in the same way for whatever reason. The next comment, double pump wasn't broken, it was just removed to close the skill gap between players. And I agree and disagree with this comment. I think that double pump was indeed overpowered and broken, and I'm happy they removed it, but I also agree that one of the main reasons why they removed it was to close the skill gap between players, because if you guys didn't play up until Season 5, so they removed it in Season 5, but up until then, you could run double shotgun and do it just fine. Like you could shoot your pump, switch to your other pump, shoot, switch back to your initial pump, shoot, and then switch back to the second pump and shoot again. And you would just kind of like cycle back and forth between shotguns. And it kind of made shotgun fights like somewhat reminiscent of a rhythm game where you were timing your swaps and shots perfectly to do the like ideal amount of damage. And then you would throw building in there as well, and fights would get really, really complicated. The problem was shotguns were incredibly overpowered back then. I think the blue pump might have hit for over 200. Like you were just throwing out one-hit kills constantly, and it was really busted. Shotguns were more inconsistent back then than they are now. But yeah, double pump was really busted, but it was fun, and I do think that it took a decent amount of skill, and over time, Epic knew that, like, you know, some players are going to embrace the game and learn to play the game and get better at the game. And they don't want that because it kind of hurts new player acquisition. I disagree personally. I would like if games just, you know, were built more to have a skill gap. That's what I really enjoyed about Fortnite. But double shotgun was busted. I would really be interested to see how double shotgun would play out in zero build, because I think zero build doesn't have a very large skill gap, and having double shotgun in the game would have more of a skill gap, I think. So if you're swapping between 2 striker pumps and trying to get that timing perfect between shots, I think that is much more skillful and much more fun personally than just throwing out a shotgun shot and swapping to your SMG and full spraying. And then there's also different combos you can do with the shotgun. Like some people did pump tack, some people did pump heavy or double heavy. There was different combos that you could make with the shotguns that kind of catered towards different playstyles. And I think that would make the close range fighting in zero build much more fun and much more rewarding and skillful than what it is currently. Do I think they're going to do it? No. This is something where, just like Siphon, removing it caused such a stir in the Fortnite community that even if it was good for it to come back, I don't think they'll ever bring it back into the game, just because it would cause such an uproar when they initially, if they do decide to take it away again. So yeah, I don't think double pump will come back, but I think zero build with double pump would be a lot of fun, way more fun than what it is currently. I think a lot of people might disagree with that, but yeah, I think double pump and zero build would be really fun. I don't really see the need for it in the build mode just because fights play out so differently, but zero build, double pump would definitely give like OG Fortnite vibes. And then one final thing I wanted to talk about in this video, someone commented this on my Twitch stream while I was talking about this concept for a video, and that was that they miss when mythic POIs were a thing and when they were really overpowered. It made the game more fun to play, and it made the game like more exciting, and it made seeing the new map more exciting when a new season came out. And I agree with this to an extent, but I don't want the game to go back to that. It was pretty busted. But the mythics that we have now and the mythics we had last season were really disappointing, and they didn't even really feel that like special or unique. So the way you get mythics now is by upgrading your plant, and then it's basically a weapon that already exists in the game with like 2 more damage. And the mythics in last season were basically the same thing. There's a few boss characters, but Sloan Striker was like 1 more damage or 2 more damage, I think, and 3 more bursts. The Chapter 2 Season 2 mythics were busted. We had the drum gun with more damage and more fire rate than the initial than the base drum gun. So it killed so much faster, and I don't even think the base drum gun was in the game. The only way you could get the drum gun was by killing Midas. We had the Shark POI, which had a mythic Scar with more damage and more fire rate, and then also a grappler with infinite uses, really broken. We had a mythic Boom Bow, which was the only bow on the map. We had a mythic minigun, which I think was the only minigun on the map for a while until they changed some of the POIs around and brought base miniguns into the game again. But the mythics felt special, and it felt fun to use, but it also really sucked to play against, and it really sucked to losing to that. So that is why I don't think they'll make really overpowered mythics again, even though it was really exciting and really fun for the game. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Comment down below more unpopular opinions that you have about Fortnite. Also, let me know if you enjoyed the video, and if you have anything to add to discussions that we had in this video, comment that as well. If you guys did enjoy it, give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.